Your loving kindness was revealed through every aspect of his life. Accept our words of praises and our offerings of joy this day, for they are a response to all you have done. Continue to inspire us in the sharing of your grace, as there are so many who yearn to know of your loving acceptance. Amen. Now, if you will look around, say hello, and greet each other.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
That's a compliment. What is that? So right here, he didn't get the whole
We did have a space
I'm dead. Anna, nice to meet you.
I think give thanks to God this morning for all that God has done and continues to do in our lives. If you're a guest with us this morning, what a blessing it is to have you as a part of this service. Cypress Creek Christian Church is a congregation that is striving to put love first in all things. And our prayer is that as you worship, as you gather and meet people along the way, you will discover that God's love is given unconditionally, and these are people that have experienced that and want to share that wonderful news. I want to lift up a couple of things in the life of our church. We're coming to the end of a worship series called Recognizing the Ache. Because next week, we're going to be in a whole new season of the year. Actually, it starts on Wednesday with our Ash Wednesday service. Right here, right in this space, at 6:45 p.m. Would love for you to come and be a part of what is a very powerful experience of communion and ashes. So hope to see you there. And that begins the period of time called Lent, which leads us to Holy Week and Easter. It's an important time in life in Christianity and life of this congregation. And so I hope you will be a part of it. This Thursday is Life. That's with 2 L's. It's about loving and leading individuals from exploitation. A ministry that we have here at Cypress Creek Christian Church. And it is a time to get together. We reach out to those that might potentially be caught in human trafficking. It's to reach out to them with a phone number where they might contact those who can come alongside them and help them out. It's also just to pray with them, just to let them know they are loved. If that's something you're interested in, the gathering again at 6:30 this Thursday night. There will be food, I'm told, but you can, if it's something kind of anxious about, you can just come and listen and pray for those that are making the calls. So again, this Thursday night. This Friday, Prime Timers Luncheon. Stephanie is going to be bringing some of her music. And so if that's of interest to you, please let us know that you are coming. This weekend, Friday and Saturday, a men's retreat out at the campground near Gonzales, Texas. And on Saturday, a women's retreat right here on our campus. So I hope you might consider participating in those great events. And then our annual chili cook-off. It's coming up on the 25th of February, just a couple weeks away. There's a sign-up sheet out here if you're willing to toss your chili into the ring. That's figuratively, toss it into the ring. It's always a fun time, but the money that's raised gets split between our youth mission trips and an outreach ministry for children and youth here in the Texas area. So again, whether you bring chili or just come to taste and throw in a few dollars on the one that you think is the best, it is for a great couple of causes. And as attendance books are being passed around, I'm going to invite Norma down. She has a quick introduction to do. With those attendance books, not only let us know that you were here this morning, but there are prayer cards that you find in there. Let us know how we can pray for you. And there'll be a time later in the service or in communion for you to come forward and to place those prayer concerns or prayer joys as well in the baskets.
Thank you, Bruce. Okay, I have my community center hat on, and I have some thrilling news. We have been invited to participate in the Capstone study. This is a study that is part of Rice University Jones School of Business MBA program. Can you say wow? Wow! We are so excited. The study teams a group of students who are going through the MBA program with a nonprofit organization. And throughout the next few months, we will be talking about developing strategic plans, marketing plans, social media plans, those kinds of good business elements that make the community center a growing presence in the community. It's an awesome time. What a better way to start off the new year as we look at what's new after Hurricane Harvey. And you know, the community center and church are a very unique business model. It's in our DNA. but for an MBA student, this is way outside the box. So I asked them to come and see what we're all about. They came a couple of weeks ago. We had FEMA here for a training session. We had a pop-up library, and then we had bingo. And so I said, come and let's worship together. So I want you to meet my new best friends, my capstone team. Would you all stand and welcome them? What we're here all about. And church, thank you for your support.
It is a unique model, this church community center, and even in its early years, Glenn Wilkerson tried to take it out and start it in other churches, and it never really grabbed a hold. And yet, in this unique setting, it is a marvelous way of saying these buildings do not belong to us, they are God's. How can the community be enriched by coming into this place? And it's one way that we demonstrate one of our core values in hospitality. Let us now join our band in this third song.
For every eye
Like I said, this is our last Sunday on this worship series, recognizing the age, growing towards spiritual maturity. And this has been, even though I did not name it in these terms, this 5 weeks has been a catechism of sorts, a Christianity 101 for us. And I use the all-in statement to begin, are we all in? And use that as an acronym to guide our services. The first week was this recognition, this awareness, the A there, the awareness of the longing for God. A longing that I think exists within every single human being. The second week was the first L. And we talked about our central text as people of faith. And it was talking about a literary approach to the scriptures that unleashes the meaning and the power of the words. The second L was life-giving. If the message you draw from scripture and faith is not life-giving, I'm going to suggest that you need to go back to the beginning, because I think it really is life-giving. And last week, we talked about intimacy, naming the fact that there is a lot of hurt and pain in our culture, and it's difficult for some people to be vulnerable, understandably. But at the same time, as a community of faith, we need to work on that. Being vulnerable, being humble, and allowing for folks to discover a sense of intimacy within community that resembles the intimacy that is possible with God. And today we are to the end of all end. And this is no one is a nobody. And for that I want to look at two passages of Scripture. The first one is from Matthew 18:12. It is one of the parables of Jesus. What do you think, Jesus asked, if someone had 100 sheep and one of them wandered off? Wouldn't you leave the 99 on the hillside and go in search of the one that wandered off? The second passage comes from 1 John, the 3rd chapter, the first half of the first verse. It says this: see what kind of love the Father has given to us, in that we should be called God's children, and that is what we are. May the words that you have heard become words that define your life, not simply in this hour, but beyond these walls as well. Join me in prayer. For the breath that fills our lungs, for the Spirit that fills our lives, and for the words that fill our vision of what is possible, we give you thanks this day, O Lord our God. Amen. I came across a story posted by a fellow pastor, a story about Everest. Everest, a 13-year-old who one day came home from school with a stain, a large stain on his shirt. And his mother asked, what happened? And he told her the truth. I got thrown in a trash can. What? She asked. Well, for more than a week now, he said, some of the older kids at school have been throwing me in a trash can every single day, telling me that's where I belong because I am trash. His mother was furious. But before she jumped on that, she tried to offer him a word of affirmation. You know you're not trash, right? But those boys that have been doing this to you, they're trash. To which Everest responded, Mom, I know that I'm not trash. But neither are those other boys. They just have some garbage in their life that needs to be thrown in the trash. And when they finally do, they will be happier people. Wow. That alone will preach. In preparing for this sermon, I came across many, and I would suggest too many stories like that of Everest. Stories among the young and the old and everyone in between. Experiences of people being bullied, abused, experiences of ugliness and mean-spiritedness and hatred and rejection. And some, like Everest, have an amazing ability to not be owned by the experience. And yet I gotta believe that still the best of us can't go unscathed by that kind of happening. While many others, and I would suggest most others, are continually affected and infected by those kinds of events. Along with the story about Everest, I read stories about Max and Angel and Carlos and Samantha. And I had planned to share in my sermon at least 2 of those stories, but as I stood back from it, I realized that those 4 names represented for me so many who not only have heard such stories, but know them maybe very personally. And so instead of me trying to tell this story, I just named their names. And I imagine that you are able to name that story yourself. Again, whether it's something you've seen or something you've experienced firsthand. Now, the audience of 1 John, the audience that this was written to, knew those experiences. Now, in the epistle itself, there's no section that specifically details the problems, but you can tell that there is conflict. You can tell that there is division among the community. And we come across those words that say, those who claim to love the Lord but hate their brothers and sisters. And he goes on to talk about what that means. How can that be that someone loves the Lord and yet hates brothers and sisters? I doubt the author was writing hypothetically here. I think this is something the author knew very well. And yet amidst those kinds of statements, we also find in 1 John some of the most beautiful language about love. About the power of love in community. See what kind of love the Father has given to us, in that we should be called God's children, and that is what we are. I don't believe the author uses the pronouns us, we, to describe some elite segment of society, some select group that has achieved a certain level of worthiness. I think the author is concerned about things that have been seen in the community in regard to how God's love is portrayed, and how this portrayal of God's love has fallen very short of what is seen in the life of Jesus. Too many people demonstrate a very shallow, self-serving, mean-spirited understanding of God's love. And yet what I think the author is saying, that even though that all exists, the true nature of God's unconditional love is unfazed. It is unaffected. It still remains what it is. This love has been given to us, we read, all of us, that we might discover our place as children of God, for that is what we are. What we are. It doesn't say what we will become. It is what we are right now. This is the love that the Maxes and the Angels and the Carloses and the Samanthas and the Everests need to know. This is what they need to hear. And yet 2 weeks ago, for a 7-day period, I kept a tally. Every time I watched the news or read the news or listened to the news on the radio, every time I read an email or a blog post, every time I went on Facebook or some other social media, I kept track. And I found 192 separate, disparaging, hateful, demeaning statements made about some group in our world. And I didn't go out searching for them. I just went to the usual places that I go to every week. And I would like to think it was unusual, but I would suggest it is pretty typical for what we find out there. 192. How many times does a person need to hear a radically different message to counter that negative narrative? It's more than just 1 hour in worship, but it's a good place to start. And then imagine, if you will, you are one that is already feeling torn down. Imagine, if you will, you're one that's already been trashed, already one who feels spiritually wounded and emotionally broken, and then 192 times in 1 week you hear about either some other group or the group that you are a part of being belittled and pushed down and rejected and thrown out. I believe the author of 1 John used the most extensive, expansive us and we imaginable, because the alternative is to undercut the very nature of the Jesus message, to undercut that message for others, but also to undercut it for the very one who's doing the undercutting. It was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who said, "We must learn how to live together as family, or we will perish together as fools." We are tied, he said, tied together in a single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, and whatever affects one directly affects us all indirectly. For some strange reason, he went on to say, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the way God's universe is made. He goes on to say, this is the way it is structured. So if someone is bullying you, if someone is disparaging to you, insulting you, vilifying you, devaluing you, that person is not only causing injury to you, because that person is suggesting that somehow you are beyond God's love. That person, I believe, is also bringing injury back to self, as their actions are portraying God's love in a way that is very conditional, very limited. We are all tied together in a single garment of destiny. I'm fascinated by a study that was done. I've shared this with a few of you already. A study that looked at different countries around the globe. Looked at countries and the gap between the poor and the rich. Looked at countries where the gap was small, where the gap was large in others. But also looking over periods of decades where in the same country the gap either got smaller or got larger. And then they looked at life expectancy. And where the gap was at its biggest and largest, the poorest of the poor had a very low life expectancy. But so did the rich, which you wouldn't think that's the case. But where they saw that gap getting smaller and smaller, the life expectancy of the poor went up and the rich. That doesn't seem to make sense, and yet I think we are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. One person may tear down another thinking that that's all there is, but there is collateral damage that ripples back to the one who started it in the first place. I think that's part of the takeaway from the parable of the lost sheep. The loss of just one isn't just impactful for the one, but for everyone. Yes, God's love aches for the one that is lost, that is left behind, that is marginalized and beaten down and rejected. That one is of utmost importance to God, but not simply for the sake of the one. It is because the 99 are less without the one. The more our love includes others, the more our love reaches beyond the barriers that divide, the more our love incorporates and embraces those that we do not understand, the more we stretch our capacity for love, the closer we get to the love of God revealed in Jesus Christ. Too often people tear down others because somewhere deep within themselves they question whether they are of value. They draw the circle thinking that they are excluding others and including themselves, but what they do so often is that they draw that circle so tightly that they exclude themselves as well. I'm guessing that many of you saw the movie Sully. It is the movie, the true story about Captain Sullenberger. He was the pilot of Flight 1549. It is the story of this plane that struck geese right after takeoff and then had to make an emergency landing on the Hudson. Well, there are two scenes in that movie where I got very emotional. The first scene came right after the plane crash landed on the Hudson. And most everybody had gotten out, and Sully, the captain, went down the aisle. The plane was sinking into the water. As he went towards the back, it was shin deep, and then knee, and then mid-thigh the water was. And it was bitterly cold, but as he went down the aisle, he continually shouted out, "Is there anyone left? Is there anyone here on the plane? Is there anyone left?" He wanted to make sure that not one person was left behind. And then a short time later in the movie, when he is at the hospital getting checked out, there were 155 passengers and he's wanting a count. And one of the airline representatives comes in and says, "We have a count. 155. Every single one survived." And Tom Hanks, who plays Sully, has this amazing expression on his face. A combination of a surprise, but also awe. I think that represents what people across this nation and across the world felt in that moment. There is something, I think, within each of us that wants to hear a story where every single person is found. Every single person is discovered. No one is left behind. I think that touches a part of who we are. Last Sunday was Scout Sunday here at Cypress Creek. And both Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts shared in services were here. But on Tuesday, I was talking to Tammy, our children's minister, and she said, "You know, Bruce, our Girl Scout troop accepts everyone." And initially I kind of blew her statement off. Well, of course we do. But she said, no, Bruce, you need to understand. We have girls in our program that went to another troop were told, "I'm sorry, we're full." Girls that went to other programs and told for one reason or another, "No, you're not welcome." The last thing a young girl needs to hear is "you're not welcome here." That's the last thing. And so the Girl Scout troop, associated with Cypress Creek Christian Church, a congregation that is striving to put love first in all things, wants to make sure that every young girl, everyone, has a place to experience the extensive and expansive love of God made real. And the more that we do this, the more love that we share, the more people we include, the larger the circle is drawn, the closer we get to experiencing the love of God revealed in Jesus Christ. And we need to remember along the way the Maxes and the Angels and the Carloses and the Samanthas, because they are depending on us, and we are depending on us. Because 192 times in 1 week, a narrative that says to people, you are not welcome, you are not worthy, you are not loved, you are not valued. We have our work cut out for us, but we have a model, a powerful model, an inspiring model in the life of Jesus. One who went out wherever he might be and made sure that every sister and brother had a place. Made sure every sister and brother knew that they were loved unconditionally. And we have to make sure that what we are a part of every Sunday morning is hearing that message to try to push back that story that continues to say that not only those out there, but that we are of little value, that we are not loved. To make sure that we understand it ourselves, to make sure that we are touched by it, make sure that we embrace it. Because we need to go out from this place and meet those on the street, in our community, in our workplace, who are feeling so broken and hurt and lost because of the narrative out there that says you're not loved. And we have a different story, people. We have a message that is very clear. And it is to proclaim and to live out the unconditional love of God. Any judgment or opinion, that's for God to take care of. Our task is simple. And it is to make sure that sisters and brothers know that they are loved. It's hard work because we too sometimes get caught up in that story. And we want to begin devaluing others because we are concerned about our own value. And that's hard. That's why in part we come together to hear the message again. To be reminded just how much every single one of us is loved. To remind ourselves just how precious we are. And to be able to be empowered by that news. And to go out and to share it. Will you join me in a word of prayer?
Amen.
Oh God, whose love is extensive and expansive and is given without condition. We gather and joyfully acknowledge that gift, for it is the reason for our gathering. Your love that took on flesh in Jesus of Nazareth allows for us to see the depth that you were willing to go to reveal the character and far-reaching nature of your love. Allow us for just a moment here in this space to once again feel that love expressed through your Spirit. A love that is in this space. Allow us to feel it and to know it and to embrace it so that we are capable of the work that you have set before us. The task of bringing that love to the life of others. And when we do, it reinforces the unconditional nature of your love. A love that includes us as well. Allow us to be concerned, passionate about the one that has slipped away, the one that is forgotten, rejected, or lost. Maybe it's us. And so we want to make sure that we don't simply say goodbye or dismiss or forget about. Because then another, and then another, and then maybe it'll be us. So speak to us, Lord. Speak to us a word of your grace. Empower us with your love. Allow us to be your people for the sake of your gospel. This we pray in the name of Jesus.
In the 37th chapter of Ezekiel, God told Ezekiel to go and prophesy to some dry bones. And I can imagine that Ezekiel felt a little bit confused. And he went and did as God commanded. And of course, a miracle happened. And those bones came to life. And I think that what we're supposed to learn from that story in Bruce's message today is that each one of us in here has that ability because God lives within us. And we can do it. We can help other people. We can show kindness because God lives in our heart. And when we allow Him to touch others through us, it is a miracle.
was 192. Thank goodness it wasn't 193. That'd be so... No. It's a lot. It doesn't matter. It's a lot that is a part of this negative narrative. And part of what we do every Sunday around this table is to make sure that people have the opportunity to participate in what we have talked about. It allows people to get up if they want and to physically come and to share in this. And so wherever you might be in your journey, whether you have stepped away for a while and you come back and you're wondering if you're welcome, well, the message is clear, you are. Whether you're just kind of beginning the journey, you don't know whether you're quite to that place, but you're searching for God's love and you're thinking to yourself, maybe at this table, that is where I'll experience it, you are welcome. Whether you've been coming here for years, every week to the table, and it's almost become a pattern where you've forgotten, may today be the day where it comes alive anew, and the message is real for you. In the main section here, you will be invited to come forward and to take a piece of bread and to dip it in the cup and to partake of the elements, a reminder of the last meal that Jesus had with his disciples, a meal that said to them, you are loved unconditionally. For those on the back row and over there on the back row, communion will be brought to you along with the offering trays, as well as those up in the balcony. If for some reason you are in one of these sections and you can't come forward, raise your hand. We don't want you to be forgotten, because that would go very much against what we've just shared. So raise your hand and we'll bring the elements to you. And then I want to lift up here is gluten-free communion, if that is what you need. We want people to feel welcome and to fully participate in this experience. And as you're coming forward in just a few moments, I invite you to bring those tithes and offerings, along with any prayer concern you might have, and place those in the basket. Let us now prepare for a time here at the table.
Jesus sits at the table, breaking the bread with his friend, teaching what he is in before his life on earth ends. Do this in remembrance of me. Do this in remembrance of me.
This morning we gather around a table that was set with you in mind, a table that accepts all, and yes, we mean all. All are welcome here. Will you please join us in a moment of prayer?
Immortal, most powerful, eternal God, how gracious you are to invite us to this table. You never leave anyone behind. You pursue us with your love, and you set us apart. Like this table, it's sanctified, holy ground because you say it is. And as you pursue us in love, we come forward in a love response to commune with you in a deeper and more special way. You took care of everything, and we thank you, even teaching us to say, Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins, as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory
broken, and he gave it to them, saying, "Take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you." And after the meal, he took the cup, and he poured it out, and he blessed it, and he gave it to them, saying, "Take, drink. This is my blood, the blood of the new covenant, poured out for you and for many. Do this in remembrance of me." You are worthy, and you are loved, and you are invited and pursued to come to this table. The meal is ready. Please come forward.
Be my
before us is clear. The gift of the Spirit has been gifted. We are empowered for the work that lies ahead. Like we do every Sunday, we extend an invitation. It is an invitation to connect with the community of faith. It is an invitation to connect one's life to Jesus Christ. And know that invitation is offered. But today I want to say that we are at this marvelous moment in the life of our congregation. We are coming out of one experience that will be a story for us to tell many years into the future. But I'm going to suggest something that, amidst the water that damaged a lot of things around here, a few things got swept away that maybe needed to. And there is this marvelous moment for us as a community of faith. And maybe, I'm not getting emotional, I'm choking on bread. Maybe I should have just gone with the other, but couldn't fit. But there, I believe that people come and connect here, start worshiping here, in part because I think God's drawing them to be a part of a community of faith. And so if this day you wish to say, hey, this is the place I want to be, we would be blessed. Because it not only helps us better understand the power of God's unconditional love as another one comes and decides to join us, but I think that person, whoever it is, brings gifts that allow his congregation maybe to go in a direction that we never even imagined. And yet that is the marvelous thing that God does in every moment of time. And so again, if you're feeling called this day, you can either come forward as we sing, or we'll be out here right after the service, and we'll be glad to talk to you and help you think about what it means to connect your life to Christ. Let us now join our voices in this celebration.
Now we're under one name.
add to their prayer life this coming week. It'll also be in my daily devotional that'll go out tomorrow morning. If for some reason that slips out of your hand and you can't find it tomorrow, you can get it online. And of course, don't forget about the chili cook-off and the sign-up sheet. I invite you now to grab the hand of somebody close and let us join together in our unison prayer. Gracious God, may your love and our lives come together in a life lived in love. May Jesus be our